Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Mafia Roundtable with Dominic Sicali and my co-host Joe Barone. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dominic, good to see you again.
Great to see you as always. Folks, today I'm going to let Joe talk about what he remembers with his stories. But before that, people, you know what? I'm giving a shout out to John and Linda. John and Linda are a couple that I met while I've been down here in Florida. And I know them now maybe about a year and a half. And just recently, Linda tells me, she's like, John's a fan of yours. And I didn't even know they knew about my past. And yet he found me on YouTube and he watches all the shows. John, Linda, proud to say, uh, glad you guys are my friends. You accepted me. And I hope you enjoyed the stories. So we'll just move on from there. But thank you and a shout out to John, who Linda said, "Oh my God, John loves watching your shows," and I didn't even notice the whole time, but it finally came out after all this time, and it makes me feel good that people who know me now are watching the show, and when they bring it to my attention, it's like, wow, like I didn't scare them away, they didn't run away from me. So it just shows, it makes you feel good, the message you're putting out there to people and sharing the story. So thank you for watching.
And for the food when you were sick.
And for the food when I was sick. Yes, they came with food for me after I got released from the hospital. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your friendship. It's greatly, it touches deep in my heart. So thank you. So with that, I'd like to thank our sponsor, EG Vodka. Go to egvodka.com, folks. Order your EG Vodka today. Order 6 bottles or more. Shipping is on me. Put the promo code Fluff Fluff. Excellent vodka. You'll love it. Go to egvodka.com. Order it today. And I will turn the camera over to Mr. Barone. So what would you like to discuss today, talk about, go back into our past stories, history?
And before we do that too, as well, I just like to thank some of the people who actually sent in some comments on our very first show way back. They had asked me to mention about the Third Street guys, who was the West End of New Rochelle, where I grew up. And I'm going to give a shout out to everybody out there who still likes me anyways.
You don't have to worry about that. Don't
exactly.
worry.
You never know today, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But they had asked me to mention them, and I do remember a lot of stuff from back in those days too. And actually, our stories will coincide a lot of times about. We'll bring this up later on, but how close I was to Ralphie Coppola and all of those guys. So it'll be really good stories to tell about that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to hear them, Joe.
Yes, and I was going to say, if you remember one time when we went to the Sue's Rendezvous, and we were with a bunch of guys. That was one of the first times you called me down in a spur of the moment. I didn't know what we were doing.
I was getting ready to take you out. I found out that you worked with the government. You know that.
Well, that's what I kind of thought. You asked me to meet you in 15 minutes at Nancy Ann's house and your cousin. And I says, okay, could I have 20? You went, all right, but make it 20. And I was like, okay. So when I go there, she said, what's going on? She was like, well, like that. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Well, I figured that, just because I know back then, and I didn't know why then, but you were always cagey. Like you wouldn't, especially me calling for you at night. I felt, okay, let me get you over to Nancy Ann's house, my cousin, who was your gumada at the time, I have to say. But call you over there where you feel comfortable, knowing, that's what I felt. So that's why I did it that way.
Yeah, that was pretty smart of you as usual. But yeah, so she had said to me, she says, what's going on? You everything all right? She says, Dominic told me you were gonna need you. I said, I don't know. So I left her the keys and I said, look, if I don't come back, I says, here's the keys to my car.
Uh, but
We had a lot of but she told me, because later on, because that's not the first time you did that to me, but you got a really big kick out of it.
Yeah, no, I just because I know it disrupts your flow, your rhythm, your little. I would say your little world you were in was your comfort zone.
Yes.
I took you out of your comfort zone, and to see you come when I called for you, it just proved your loyalty towards me coming.
Yeah.
Not, and especially the fact now looking at it, I could imagine how you must have felt knowing, damn, does Dominic even know I'm cooperating? Oh shit, he found out. He's going to look to take me out. I could imagine what was running through your mind, me doing something unexpected, especially at nighttime.
Well, I'm not gonna lie to you too. I'm not gonna lie to you. When you did call me to meet you, I did tell the agent that I was working on because I didn't know if I was gonna come back.
Okay.
So I did tell him that, and he said, "Look, whatever time it is, I don't care." He says, "Just call me, make sure you're okay." He says, "If not, if you don't call me by the morning time," he says, "I'm gonna have the people start out there looking for you."
Right, right.
Was that true or not? He was gonna do that for me. I don't know. It made me feel a little bit better, like somebody knew. You know what I mean?
I'm sure they would have definitely, because listen, they would have loved to take me off the streets then. So
absolutely.
I'm sure they would have definitely.
I could go into the story. You want me
Yeah.
to save that for later?
No, whatever you want.
So we went. So I go down there, and so Nancy and I were a little bit nervous. But then you come walking in dressed up, and then you brought your father. I says, "What the hell is he going to do? Is he going to do this with his dad?" I says, "I didn't know, because your father was no slouch either."
No, he would. You know what?
But he was no slouch either.
You know what? And we'll go into my father at a later date as far as with Nicholas Cirillo, Quiet Dom's son, and the day that he disappeared. So we'll go into that, and maybe we'll save that for the big screen, Joe, that we'll be working on.
Sounds good. Yeah, that might be good. So what happened was I said hello to you and your father and everything, and you kind of was like a little standoffish to me, but I figured there was something on your mind. So when we get into the car, I couldn't believe you guys were making me sit in the back seat. So I said, "Okay, so that's not too bad. I feel a little bit better already." But then as I opened the car, I see the car seat. I said, "Nah, nothing's gonna happen. You still got the baby seat in the back. We're okay." So now we're driving. He goes, "Hey," I says, "Where we going?" You say, "You don't know where we're going, Joe?" Now you're doing about 70 miles an hour in a 35 miles an hour zone. And I'm like, "The fuck's he going so fast?" He said, "He don't know where he's going." So then your father said, "You don't know where we're going, kid?" I went, "Okay." I'm looking around. I said, "It's going to be hard to jump out here because we're going kind of fast." I said, "Well, I'm in it now." And then all of a sudden you start laughing. He said, "What's the matter, Joe? You look a little nervous. What do you think, you're going to get whacked?" I said, "Holy shit." I said, "No, not really." But to be honest with you, I was sweating. And then all of a sudden we pull in Mount Vernon and we go to Sue's Rendezvous, the strip bar. What a load off my mind it was, let me tell you. And then all the guys met us outside, all the people you were meeting there and stuff. That's matter of fact, that's where I met Sally Daz's kid, Anthony.
Right.
And so when we went in there and everything, I was like so relieved. They said, "You want a drink?" I was like, "Yeah, something strong, please." But nobody knew what I was new, but you were laughing.
Because you weren't much of a drinker either.
What happened?
You weren't much of a drinker.
No, but I needed one that night.
I'm
so
sure
I had a
you
quick
did.
drink. I drank the same thing you were drinking at that time. You used to drink the Kettle One and tonic back in those days.
Right.
So I drank that back and all the guys were there and everything. And we were having a good time. But I remember you went up and you went to go to the men's room. And so I waited for a second and you were walking by yourself. And I'm like, this guy's our captain. Who are these guys? They're not even looking to see where he's going. So about a couple of seconds after you walked in, I waited till you to get in. And then I walked in. And then sure enough, you were kind of glad to see that I followed you in there just to make sure that you was good. Because you were my captain.
Right.
Like you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I remember that time when we were met at Hawaii Sea. And you remember Gregory Hill?
Oh, Greg, of course. Greg, oh, we got some good Greg Hill stories.
Oh, God, yeah. Greg was Greg was a good guy. And I got some other stories to tell you that you didn't even know you was away. But remember, we were in Hawaii Sea, we were having a drink, and he went to go grab you at the bar, and I grabbed him. He goes, "Oh, Joe, is that the way it is?" I said, "Yeah, Greg, that's the way it is."
And Greg, that's messed up. That's messed up, Joe. That's messed up, Joe.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. All right, that's Greg.
That's exactly what he did. And I felt bad for him, but he can't put his hands on you when I'm there. Not that you couldn't defend yourself, but you know what I'm saying.
And folks, for those of you who don't know, Greg Hill, he's in the tile marble terrazzo union in New York. Greg, okay, my cousin Nancy Ann had a kid with Greg's brother. I think it is, Joe. Was it a brother?
Yeah, Johnny.
Had a son with Johnny, and he's married to another woman, but Greg's his uncle, so he's tied into my family. And Greg worked with me with the tile. He worked with me with the auto repair shop. Greg was always there. I had more laughs with Greg. Oh my God, what we didn't do.
Greg is really a good guy. I mean, push come to shove, he would have probably fought me. He's not a punky type of guy, but he's just
not at all.
No. And he's a good guy. I didn't really care for his brother Johnny. Well, not just because of what he did. I remember him from a long time ago. He doesn't remember me. Right. But Greg was a good guy though, and I like the way he said, "Oh, Joe, man, it's messed up." Like,
Hey, Joe, the funny part of it all. When I first came home from prison, one of the first nights I went out, not one of the first nights. This is maybe I'm out 5 months. I'm living in the Bronx now at this point. I go out with Greg. So we wind up going to Frenchie's, which is a bar in the neighborhood. It's late at night. It's maybe about 1 in the morning. We walk in there. Music's going. I ordered drinks. We're at one end of the bar. Greg went in. All of a sudden, I see him walking out. He was arguing with some kids, but it's all neighborhood. So I didn't think anything of it. And Greg goes outside. They jumped him. They're beating the shit out of him. I'm over there having a good time drinking. And like Greg is behind me getting beat up. I wind up going outside. And by this time, everything's like ended. Greg was pissed at me. Where were you? And he's yelling. I'm like, Greg, I didn't know. Like, what the hell? We're in the neighborhood. You didn't say, Dom, get my back. You said, Dom, I'm going outside. So what the hell do I know? But he was pissed, probably till this day. But it was funny. But Greg and I mean, he came a lot of times. He was always there. Loudmouth, but a fun person to be with. And
he was naturally funny, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, with his one-liners. I mean, he didn't give two F's about anybody. I had a lot of fun with him. I definitely did.
Yeah. And he made good money working with you too when he was driving the tow truck and stuff like that.
So, let him say it. Dom, I need more money. Or I need money for this. I need money for this. Meanwhile, he knew how to hustle. That's for sure.
Yeah, he was a good kid. He was a good guy. Matter of fact, he was going to have a problem with your cousin Matthew, and I was sitting in there, and he said, "Excuse me, Joe, no offense, I just got to take care of something." And then he went and charged Matthew, and then Matthew went into the house, but it was like he still respected me out there. That's where his head was.
We had fun. Hey, Joe, there was another thing you just brought to my attention before we aired about the another thing you came with me on with the Albanian.
Yeah, I remember you asked me to come with you. You were going to have to do something, and you said you can bring somebody if you want to, and I did. I brought a friend of mine from New Rochelle, Steve Moriello.
Okay.
And he actually works for the sanitation department, and but he was close to me, and he was around me, and he loved all of this kind of stuff, and he was trying to make his bones. So I told him, come with me. So sure enough, Vinny dropped you off. Vinny had the Lincoln Navigator at that time. And he dropped you off, and then we all went down to this place. It was a rough neighborhood of the Bronx. But I think Albanian guys owned the place, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it might have been, I think, what you're talking about. I want to say by Bronxwood or Van Cortlandt.
Van Cortlandt. I think it was like Van Cortlandt.
It was I know the area, and I remember the guy who owned it. It was a guy, Nick. Not Nick with the head of the Albanians. Another guy, just an Albanian guy, Nick, who owned the bar.
Yeah, and them guys were pretty tough too. I mean, they were no, not taking anything away from them. But I didn't know what the story was or the reason why we went there. But you had asked if he was around, and he wasn't. And they asked, "Who are you?" And you said, "I'm the new owner." And then you handed me these couple. You handed me one and somebody else one. These wire cutters to start cutting all the machines, all the gambling machines, all the poker, anything that was tied to a thing. We started. I handed it to my friend Steve, and Steve went around, started cutting all the wires into place. It was funny as shit.
Did we take the machines out there that night out of the place?
Who was this?
We left the machines there that evening, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We just cut the wires from them where they were plugged in.
Right. And folks, that's the way I rolled back then. Like, if I had a gripe with somebody, we had to handle it. So went in there, called Joe, and Joe proved his loyalty, his worth to me, and that's part of bringing somebody into the fold, into the life. And then all the while, this is another thing. Joe could jam me up with the FBI, and he never did. So that just shows the love he had for me and the respect. So, and it's here too. It goes back and forth. But Joe, just to let you know, I think it was a day or two later, I had those machines. Then after we cut the wires, taken out of the place.
Yeah, exactly. And then I don't know what happened. I think you had to go to like some kind of meeting with these guys or whatever it was, and everything got straightened out in your favor. Of course, I think they saw that you was for real again. Maybe they forgot, but you reminded them.
Yeah, and the funny part, and I told this story prior, even after that all got settled, this is the same guy, Nick, who when I was with the head Albanian, Nicky, at his place, this guy, Nick, told the head guy, Nicky, that I said, F Nick. And when Nick brought it to my attention, I'm like, Nick, I never said that to you. I would never say, you're my friend. Why would I say that? I said, call him here now. So the head guy, Nick, one of the head of the Albanians, turned around and said, Dom, you want to leave and go get some guys? I said, I don't need anybody. You're my friend. I have you here. We'll deal with it. And that's when I wound up hitting the guy with a bar stool. I cracked Nick by accident, the boat nicks. But it was, I did what I had to do, and I didn't give a shit, and I was by myself with all in the Albanians' main headquarters.
Yeah, and now that you said that, I remember that whole thing now, how it played out. And I remember when it happened, the end part of it. I had forgotten because it'd been so long ago.
Right. And it was known, like, and even Nick, the head Albanians, like, he couldn't believe it. Like, typical guy would say, all right, let me come back. I was like, no, we'll deal with this shit now. I don't need people with me. If you my friend, I'm at your place. That's it. I don't have to worry. And when we came out of the back room, it was funny because the guy, Nick, who lied, he came out bloodied. And then Nick, the head Albanian, he's coming out, his eyes cut open because accident. He got hit with the back of the bar stool when I picked it up. So I'm walking out and I'm laughing. So he's like, Dom, that's messed up. Like, and who knows what everybody else in the place thought. But, it was funny to me. But it showed, too. I didn't play. I don't need a crew of guys. I'll handle stuff myself, too. And that's, folks.
You handled yourself always. And I knew that, too. And that's why, like, when you called me, I knew that it was going to be something that we needed to take care of. And I was, I was there. And I appreciate you saying that, too. But I remember being at other places. There was another place we went to. It was in a neighborhood the Albanians owned it. But they all showed you respect, all of them.
I think, Joe, what happens, and people out there, they know. People hear things. And like I said in the past, having a button, being a made guy, didn't change me. I was still a thug. That's the way I was brought up. That's the way I was raised. Even at the time, even before I was straightened out, I wouldn't care if you were a soldier, a captain. If you disrespected me, I was going to serve you. And that's it. And Joe, that's the way, I think that's what gave me a lot of respect on the streets. People knew that I wasn't just a guy who had a button that didn't earn my stripes. I was the real deal. That's the way I felt,
That's the way everybody did look at you. I mean, even I knew right away. I remember James, Michelle's boyfriend. Remember he tried to grab you one time, long time ago, and you threw him on the floor like it was a rag doll. He thought because he was working out for a little while, he was benching like, I don't know, 250 or whatever he was. He thought he got a little stronger. And you threw him like a rag doll, and we were all laughing about it.
Yeah, but I was normal. I wouldn't.
Yes.
I would keep myself. Listen, you would never even know it. We could joke around, play around, and I was good with all that. But I tried to be fair, and that's it. I tried to keep my life separate. I tried to keep being civil with civilians, people who weren't straightened out, and then I knew how to conduct myself when I was around made people. And then once I got straightened out, I tried to stay the same way, be the same Dominic.
Oh yeah, come on. You were the same way in the gym as you were around anybody else. We worked out together. I saw the way you was. A couple of guys that knew you in the gym. I mean, you're just like a regular guy. And then when you were around the wise guys, and especially when you proposed me that time and you told me straight out, look, I'm just going to introduce you to wise guys now, and that's it. And, just around us, and that's the way it was. But they had the same level of respect. I mean, look, even Ace was a strong kid himself. He was an animal. And when he was around you, he acted like a gentleman.
Yeah, listen, Ace and I will go into those stories too. Yeah. Those late nights with, from girls to fighting. That I'm the one who named him Lou Cabrats because he was as loyal as they would come.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, even when I was hanging around Louis Electric, he says, I don't know what happened. I think you were away then, and Ace was away, and he says, I would have put those two guys up against anybody, he told me.
Yeah. We were like two pit bulls. Give us a bone, we're getting that bone. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And like I said, yeah, he was tough too. I remember a story he told me a long time ago. He was riding his motorcycle because you guys used to ride the bikes together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some guy cut him off or something, like he fell off the bike, and he got up, and the guy stopped for the red light or something, and he just beat the shit out of the dude, pulled him right out of the car.
Ace was a character. I miss him, but he'll be coming home soon. At least he's coming home.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
And also, folks, just so you know how close Joe was, and Joe, I'm going to mention this. I think there was one Thanksgiving that Joe came with his girlfriend Joanne to my mother's house, and we shared. Was it Thanksgiving, Joe?
Yes, it was. Yep.
It was Thanksgiving that Joe came, Joanne came. Did I have Angelina with me?
I don't think she was. I remember I saw your mother's side of the family there. That's when I met them.
Okay, all right. But that's how close Joe was with me, that he joined me for a holiday season. And like I said, Joe used to go with my cousin, and I invited Joe and his girlfriend over because that's who he was staying with for Thanksgiving. But that just shows how close I was with Joe, that I invited him into my home with my family.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was a pretty big honor. I still remember that too. I was dressed up. I put my suit on and everything.
Yes, I remember that too. And Joanne was a very classy woman too.
Thank you. Yeah, she was a good girl.
Yes. Yeah, Maddie, I think you had a question.
Did your cousin know that he was wearing a wire? Did she have any inklings, Nancy Ann, that you were wearing a wire, that you were...
Yeah, Joe, did Nancy Ann never know that you were wearing a wire? Or not wearing a wire, I'm sorry. He never wore a wire.
Yes.
We'll correct that, folks. Joe never wore a wire on anybody. He was just informing with the government.
The only wire I wore was after I got arrested on my second bid, and it was against my co-defendant. Okay. And I was glad to do it because it actually proved. Matter of fact, his attorney was the same. His attorney was the same guy that was in the movie Goodfellas.
Okay.
The Irish guy there. He was actually Joe Massino's lawyer as well.
Bronson?
What was his name?
Was it Bronson?
No, he was an Irish guy.
David Breitbart?
I'll think of his name in a little bit.
Okay.
But I didn't really care for him that too much. But that's the only time I wore a wire. The other times I never wore a wire. But Nancy, going back to the question, never knew I was cooperating at all. The only thing that might have given her a little clue was a long time ago, I took her to a place in Larchmont, a park called Manor Park.
Okay.
There was a spot that I always liked there. And if things were going to get really bad for me, of course, as you know, I had the money then, and I had my passport then. I said, if anything ever happens and I don't reach out to you and I tell you, you got to meet me at a certain place, this is the place I want you to meet me. And she said, okay.
Right.
I was close with her then, you know what I mean?
Right. Right. So close that so close she started throwing meatballs at you, right?
Well, yeah, we used to fight a lot, as you could well imagine, because of, I was with Joanne, and also, and she wanted me to be more with her.
But Joe, not to interrupt you, but like I told her, you already know he's with somebody else, so you're accepting it. So as long as he doesn't put his hands on you, he doesn't hurt you, you're a grown woman. You do what you want to do, but what you're doing is wrong. You shouldn't even be with him to begin with. But that's what she wanted, so I respect the wishes, and that was it. So she should have respected you too.
Was it Edward McDonald?
Was it what?
Edward McDonald, Joe's lawyer.
Yes, Ed McDonald. That's him.
Yes. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Maddie. I didn't get along with him for some reason. He didn't really like me, I think. But that's another story. We'll get into all of that, because after the case, and we'll tell you about that later on. But Nancy Ann and me, she had moved to New Rochelle, and we got into some kind of argument, and she used to make the fried meatballs for us,
Oh my God.
They were good.
Folks, my cousin, I have to say, the best meatballs, she would actually buy an extra pound of chopped meat.
Yes.
And before they even go into the sauce, we would eat them. We would eat them before so an extra pound just for us to eat before they went into the sauce. And then the rest went into the sauce. But, go ahead, Joe.
That's exactly right. And believe me, they were good. I mean, and she made it really special. And she even used to make the brajol. She made it with the raisins and the pinoli nuts.
Right.
So that was even good too. So, but we would get into some argument. I walked out, and she hated when I walked out. And so she's at the balcony, and she's yelling, here's your meatballs. And she's throwing them. And they were so good, to be honest with you. I was catching them and started eating them. So she couldn't help but start trying to laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could picture it. And you're saying it nicely, because she speaks like a truck driver. So she's probably saying, hey, your effing meatballs, you effing this and you effing that.
I'm trying to keep it straight over here, without cursing too much, but she was definitely a truck driver.
Oh my God. Listen, Joe, you know something? And my cousin, we grew up together, and I'll tell people, I'll go into stories about one guy, what happened. We'll do that later on. But Joe, with this one, I come home from prison this time. She came down to my house, and I'm out maybe 4 months, 5 months, not even. And she actually passed a comment to my wife that, you know what? He hasn't changed. He'll be back in. And I'm like, wow. After she left, when I heard that, I was like, wow, why would you say something like that? And I was like, really, I was taken back. I was hurt. Like, that's what you think of me? Like, are you that jealous or envious of me changing, turning my life around, that you have to knock it and come up with, well, he'll come back in? And she was bothering with me. That's just it. It wasn't like she said, well, I'm not bothering with him. He cooperated. That really hurt. But I guess, to each his own. At the end of the day, you find people's true colors.
But she come to visit you, didn't she, when you was on this last one?
She came with my grandmother, the grandmother everybody says I robbed. I took her money. I left her destitute. Wait, the best is I left her. She had no money and she had no home. I left her in the street. But yet my grandmother came to visit me with her while I was in the federal custody with Zach. And my grandmother was sending me money. Go figure.
Yeah. She used to always say, I'm not going to bother with Dominic. But when we were alone, me and her all the time, she always told me, she says, I love my cousin. She says, I says, well, you should. I says, I mean, but she's got her own issues and stuff too.
Yeah. No, I definitely, and I feel for her. I'll always love her. even till this day. I mean, stuff I'm hearing, what she did, it's disheartening. But at the end of the day, I have a big space in my heart that even Maddie looks at me like, wow, you forgive her easy? I have so much stuff that I've been through with her, us growing up, that there's always that special spot in my heart for her, that I always forgive her.
Well, that's what a lot of people, sometimes some people can't understand, but that's why I said in one of our episodes already that you had a really big heart. And I've seen it plenty of times, you know?
Yeah. Well, Joe, thank you again for coming on. People, hit that subscribe button. Let's get these subscribers up. We're starting to put out a lot of content again. And also go to egvodka.com, order it today. Also, folks, 3 Capo cigars. Go to Always Lit Cigars, get your 3 Capos. We have the Man Shot. Go to themanshot.com. For those of you who have erectile dysfunction, go to themanshot.com. Everything's confidential. And that's about it. So I'll end it with that. Joe, thank you again for coming on.
Thanks again, Dominic.
Hopefully we'll see each other soon.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
And everyone out there, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Don't worry. It's not an electric chair. You're not going to get electrocuted. So hit that subscribe button and have a good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Peace out, everybody.